Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are on a pretty massive mission. We're trying to find the hidden architecture of success. The subtle things that separate real mastery from just being competent.
And we have a huge stack of sources here. I mean, we're covering everything from peak athletic performance, detailed biomechanics, all the way to radical food philosophy and the very delicate art of reading people.
So the core quest for you, the listener, is to spot this unstoppable move.
Exactly. That action, whether it's physical or intellectual, that looks deceptively simple, but only because the mastery behind it is so deep.
Right.
We're trying to trace this invisible intent across three really high-stakes domains: physical excellence, personal connection, and ethical living. And what's wild is how they all rely on the same core principles.
Okay, let's unpack this journey. I think we have to start where any discussion of elite achievement starts.
With Kobe.
With the mindset of mastery. With Kobe Bryant. His Mamba mentality. It's still such a profound influence on younger athletes. But what are we actually talking about when we break that down?
Well, we're talking about a complete, almost spiritual commitment to the craft. It's not just about working hard. It's about reframing what effort even is. The core pillars, as our sources lay them out, start with passion. And that's what transforms, grueling training from something you have to do into something that's just a non-negotiable necessity.
And I guess if passion is the engine, then obsession is the finely tuned steering wheel.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That extreme attention to the micro steps, the little details everyone else just glazes over. But the one I find the most, brutal is relentlessness.
Oh, for sure.
That absolute refusal to settle for good enough. That feels like the highest hurdle.
It is, because it demands constant self-criticism, and that flows right into the next crucial piece, which is resiliency. For the Mamba mentality, failure isn't a weakness, it's just data. It's diagnostic. It's just a learning opportunity that fuels the next attempt. You can't be relentless if you're not resilient.
And I think you see this play out when players talk about clutch moments. Damian Lillard is famous for this.
Dame time.
Right. And he says his confidence isn't just random. It comes from knowing he put the work in. You feel like you've earned the right to be confident when the pressure's on.
And that earned confidence is what creates those signature unstoppable moves. So let's shift to that now. Let's talk about the physical art of the fadeaway jump shot.
Perfected by legends like Michael Jordan and Dirk Nowitzki.
Exactly. The move is completely predictable. Everyone in the building knows it's coming, yet it's still almost impossible to stop.
Which is the definition of mastery, isn't it? Knowing what's coming and being totally powerless to stop it. So how does a biomechanical analysis explain that kind of surgical efficiency?
So our source material really gets into the physics here. When Jordan executed his pivot, the first key was establishing a really wide base of support for stability.
Okay.
But here's the critical part. He didn't just stand up straight and lean back. He flexed his trunk and dropped his hips way down.
Wait, how does flexing your trunk and dropping your hips, how does that help stability when you're moving backwards?
It creates a stable, lower platform. By dropping his center of mass before the jump, he's minimizing any rotational force the defender might try to apply.
So you're building a foundation that's unmovable before you even leave the ground.
You got it. And Jordan also used his foot placement like a surgeon, positioning his outside foot wider than the defender's.
To create an angle.
To create an angle that basically just denied the defender a path back into the play.
That's fascinating. So it's less about jumping higher and more about controlling the geometry of the space around you.
Precisely. And because of this technical dominance, Jordan attempted, get this, a league-high 11,115 fadeaways in the 96-97 season alone. It was his go-to unstoppable weapon, and this relentless application of technical perfection. That's where our sources draw parallels to the art of the mentalist.
Okay, that connection always feels a bit counterintuitive. I mean, the fadeaway is predictable. A mentalist relies on deception, misdirection.
Yeah.
How do those two line up?
The insight here is actually really profound. The mastery isn't in hiding the action. It's in controlling the rhythm and the space of the interaction so completely that the defender is always reacting to what was, not what is. A mentalist doesn't have to trick you with some huge secret. They just manipulate your focus and your expectation. The fadeaway is so structurally sound that it can withstand the defender's best possible reaction. You see the move, but you can't stop it because your own rhythm has already been broken by the precision of the setup.
It's dominance through technical detachment.
Exactly.
Whether you're on a basketball court or just in social interaction. mastery is about controlling the other person's perception and rhythm, not just, doing your own thing flawlessly.
And that idea of controlling the interaction, that brings us right off the court and into the subtle art of social mastery. Reading those invisible intentions in human connection.
Okay, so if the unstoppable physical move requires preparation and control,
then the unstoppable social move requires sensitivity and presence.
And the foundation for that is always active listening.
Always. It's the highest form of validation, really. Making the other person feel completely understood. That's the shortcut to building rapport.
But once you're listening, you have to be able to decode the nonverbal stuff. And this is where those mentalist techniques like cold reading come back in.
Right, and cold reading isn't some kind of psychic power. It's just calculated, high-probability guessing based on really acute observation.
So you're looking at Cass's appearance, mannerisms,
vocal tones, and then you draw logical conclusions. For example, you might see subtle calluses on someone's hands, or notice their posture, or a pattern in their speech, and deduce they have a high-stress job, or a specific physical hobby. It's about spotting patterns that the person isn't even aware they're broadcasting.
And one of the most reliable cues we all broadcast is a smile. What's the non-negotiable rule for telling a genuine smile from a purely social one?
It's all in the eyes.
Right.
A genuine smile, a Duchenne smile, involves contracting the muscle around the eye socket. That's what makes the eyes narrow and gives you those little crinkles, the laugh line. A purely social smile, one that just signals politeness, only uses the mouth muscles. If the eyes aren't involved, the amusement isn't real. You're signaling engagement, but not, true joy.
That's a really powerful tool to have in any interaction. Now let's apply this to relationships. We contrast genuine affection with love bombing. Love bombing is intense, it's too soon, it demands constant reciprocation. What does a genuine, sustainable connection look like?
It looks non-telegraphic. This is a concept from Bruce Lee, from martial arts, that just perfectly applies to communication.
How so?
Well, a punch is most effective when the opponent doesn't see you winding up, right? A joke or a compliment is most effective when it's spontaneous, when it's tailored, and not all flowery or over-prepared.
Can you give us a concrete example? Telegraphic versus non-telegraphic.
Sure. A telegraphic compliment might be something like, I spent 3 hours thinking about what to say, and I decided that your ability to manage that chaotic situation was absolutely remarkable.
Okay, yeah, that feels heavy.
It signals high effort, which often signals a high demand for appreciation in return. A non-telegraphic compliment might be maybe 10 minutes later while you're talking about something else, just saying, what really struck me in that meeting was how calm you sounded.
It's spontaneous. It doesn't ask for anything back.
Exactly, and the ultimate application of this is what the sources call the unnoticed comfort shot.
I love that name.
It's a beautiful concept. It's a non-telegraphic gesture of care, maybe subtly adjusting the lights because you remember they don't like it too bright, or ordering their favorite coffee before they get there.
And you do it while you seem emotionally relaxed. You're not looking for credit.
Not at all. You're just demonstrating care through subtle, spontaneous action. It's strength projected through service, not through demand.
So if you're trying to build deeper relationships, you need environments that allow for this kind of genuine, non-telegraphic comfort.
Our sources suggest moving beyond standard dates. Go do shared creative things.
Like rock climbing, or pottery, or even playing a cooperative video game like Overcooked.
Yes, those shared challenges create forced vulnerability and problem solving. It accelerates bonding way faster than just sitting and watching a movie.
Our sources also suggest using categorized questions, especially deep questions, to unlock conversations about fears and dreams.
And my absolute favorite piece of advice in the entire stack.
IKEA.
Go to IKEA together. It's a playful way to envision a future, It forces those what-if conversations in a really low-stakes environment.
If you can survive navigating the marketplace and then assembling a Kallax shelf together,
You've probably got what it takes.
it really is the ultimate stress test.
But now, let's take this concept of invisible intent and zoom way, way out. We're moving from a personal connection to the largest ethical and political context there is, consumption.
This is a huge shift. We're going from controlling a shot or a social cue to considering the entire production history of the stuff we buy and eat. When we eat, what unseen history are we actually internalizing?
It's a fundamental change in how we see the body and the world. Eating is an act of transformation. You're turning the otherness of your surroundings into yourself.
Right.
And philosophically, the material in your digestive tract is in this weird borderland. It's inside you, but it's not quite you yet. It's a point of ethical entry.
And before industrialization, that ethical path was pretty easy to follow. You knew the farmer, you knew where your food came from.
Correct. But now, that traceability is gone. So food ethics can't just be about the good life for the individual anymore. It has to expand to cover our responsibility for the entire production history.
Fair labor practices, environmental impact.
All of it. Food is an ethical subject. It's not indifferent or standardizable, and the political implications are massive.
And yet we immediately run into that sociological finding you mentioned, the gap between what people say and what they do.
It's a huge stumbling block. Attitudinal surveys consistently show high levels of support for, political consumption. People say they care deeply about buying fair trade or sustainable products.
But the actual sales data doesn't back that up.
Not even close. It suggests people are often performing political correctness rather than living it. It is the ultimate invisible intent, what we project versus what we actually do.
But this link between consumption and deep political philosophy isn't new at all, is it? In the 18th and 19th centuries, vegetarianism and early veganism were tied directly to radical political movements.
Absolutely. That's where you find figures like John Oswald. He had this Rousseauist view that civilization had basically replaced humanity's natural sympathy.
And he argued that the violent act of meat eating, once it was normalized and industrialized, just became an unfeeling habit.
Right, and that it provided the template for human tyranny and oppression. His argument was, if you can systematically objectify and kill animals without feeling, it's a very short moral step to doing the same to other groups of people.
So the refusal of meat became a visible symbol of resistance to patriarchal society and capitalism.
Right.
Our sources even note that meat eating was analyzed as a key feature of hegemonic masculinity.
That deep connection is illustrated so vividly in literature. Just think of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The creature, after he becomes conscious, specifically adopts a diet of acorns and berries. He's explicitly rejecting the civilization that created him, a civilization that practices what philosophers later called carnophalagocentrism.
Okay, now that is a classic academic mouthful.
Yeah.
Can you break down carnophalagocentrism for us?
I can try. The source uses this term. It combines flesh-eating, male dominance, and the centrality of reason to mean the cultural structure that privileges the male, rational, flesh-eating subject above everything else.
So by choosing acorns and berries, Frankenstein's creature isn't just picking a meal.
No, it's an existential and political statement. He's rejecting the entire social order that's built on violence, objectification, and masculine dominance.
That's a really powerful way to recontextualize a simple choice like what to eat.
The abolitionist approach to animal rights took it even further. They argued that ending animals' property status would require a massive reorientation of the entire economy. It would force severe restraints on capital and industry.
And historically, the movement got its power not just from philosophy, but by forcing the public to see the invisible cruelty.
Exactly. Early anti-vivisection campaigns, for example, used spectacle. They display a stuffed dog on an operating table to get an immediate visceral reaction. They made the cruelty impossible to ignore.
And what's amazing to me is how unifying this was. The movement for kinship, as they called it cut across political lines. You had feminists, socialists like Charlotte Despard, and even conservatives all supporting the same cause.
It proves that whether you're achieving physical excellence, perfecting a social connection, or seeking ethical coherence, mastery requires an acute, relentless attention to what is typically hidden or ignored.
So we've gone from the technical precision of the Mamba fadeaway to the non-telegraphic gesture of care, and now to the ethical coherence of understanding the production history of our food. It's all about the preparation that removes the doubt.
And if we tie this final thread to the bigger picture of strength and power, we find this perfect alignment between ancient philosophy and modern math.
Well,
The Stoic philosophers, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, they argued that true strength is self-control, it's restraint. Cruelty and lashing out, they said, always spring from weakness and fear.
and mathematically,
Mathematically, game theorists like Robert Axelrod proved that tit for tat, basically reciprocity, the golden rule, is the most successful logical strategy over time. Being nice and forgiving actually generates more long-term success than being purely aggressive.
true power, then, is defined by restraint and consistency, not by brute force.
Right, and that brings us to our final provocative thought for you to mull over. The philosopher Epicurus divided pleasure into two types: static pleasure, which is equilibrium, the absence of pain, contentment, and kinetic pleasure, which is the joy of satisfying a desire which is inherently unstable.
So if the deepest forms of human connection and power rely on that static contentment, that steady, non-telegraphic care,
what subtle, aggressive, kinetic, pleasure-seeking habits in your daily life might be secretly broadcasting weakness, even when you intend to project strength. Think about that constant desire for immediate, unstable satisfaction and what it's really saying about your underlying state. That's a deep dive for next time.